Again, my co-host Tom Bostwick and Paul M. Banks, the owner of the sportsbank.net, in the studio with us here, and we'll talk some Big East basketball with you guys as DePaul takes on Seton Hall. And we were getting into this early on in the show before we took a quick break, as Cleveland Melvin is out for team rules, a violation of team rules, and Billy Garrett has an illness, and he will be out as well, which is just difficult. I don't know if DePaul is just trying to throw in the towel for today's game.
I was going to say, this may be like a day to put in the junior varsity.
Tank for Jabari? Is that where we're seeing for the Blue Demons?
I think we're seeing a lot of Peter Reichbosch tonight.
Charles Matthews.
Yeah, Peter Reichbosch will be played.
Lottery balls to cite Charles Matthews.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to tank for some high school players, but then just the concept of that doesn't really work, because the more games you lose, the less players want to come to DePaul. So again, this idea of the Blue Demons trying to lose these basketball games, of course we're joking around with that, but their players not playing in that hurts a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when we get to doing predictions for this game, it's going to be kind of ugly, because none of us here believe they have a chance, nor should we, because that's kind of going to be kind of brutal. But, I did map out the road to near 500 in Big East play.
That was a very, very nice piece, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's good to know somebody read it. But I was just like, hey, let's get excited about 8-10, because Purnell's best year has been 3-15, and he's got 2 wins now. He's been stuck on 2 for a little while now. The rest of the schedule, you'd think he should at least get 6 or 7. Probably not tonight, but Billy Garrett Jr. is really infusing some new life into this program.
Yeah, he's been something special. I mean, we were gushing over him last spring, but we tried to temper our expectations. But he's looked really, really good. I think it sort of turned with that Northwestern game. He hit obviously that huge shot for the win.
It's confidence.
Yeah, right, and it just keeps building. And him and Young, we thought we're starting to mesh together better in the backcourt. But obviously, you mentioned earlier the benching in the Xavier game. But tonight, with all these injuries, I am excited, because I think R.J. Currington's going to get some minutes. And the guy apparently can shoot lights out, but we haven't seen it yet this season because he hasn't seen the floor. But if he gets some extended minutes and shows some good things, maybe Purnell can find a microwave guy off the bench there.
Interesting notes here from wearedepaul.com. As Tommy Hamilton, as Steve Newhouse, the owner of the website, great guy. Just a little shout out to Steve right there. Tommy Hamilton, he says,
"Hey Steve, how you doing?"
Yeah,
I like him.
Hey, he's a good guy at all the DePaul games. He says Tommy Hamilton is probable for tonight's game, but then he's not in the starting lineup, so I'm not sure if he's going to be playing limited minutes off the bench. Maybe that's just Purnell's decision. Again, I don't get Purnell's decision if that's what he's going to go with. But here's the starting lineup for the Blue Demons. Duan Moero, Sandy Marchuch, Brandon Young, Darrell McDonald, and Edwin McGee is your starting small forward, it looks like.
Good for Ed. Nice guy. He is a captain of the team. Obviously, he's a hustle player, walked on to turn scholarship, but
yeah, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens. Again, just one more thing here. Billy Garrett is currently at a New Jersey hospital on IV after falling ill.
Ooh.
So it seems like it's more serious than just like has the flu or something where he's on the bench.
Yeah, if he's getting an IV, that's really something.
Yeah, it could be the flu, dehydrated from the flu, though.
Right. It's interesting here, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Blue Demons play in this basketball game. Again, we'll dive into the matchup right now. Quick little update before we do so. Wisconsin up 31-27 on Purdue, and there's 40 seconds left in the first half. That's the correct time.
Okay, 30. So there you go. That's a 62-54 final. That's closer to respectable. I mean,
not 18-11.
You can you can at least legally classify that as basketball with a score like that.
Did you see that Virginia-Wisconsin game earlier this year? It was like 46-44 or something was the final.
Oh,
it was disgusting. I turned it off in the first half because it was just Brick City. But I'm glad to see Wisconsin's actually scoring points today.
Very similar to U of I Northwestern score.
Yes, and I brought this up that night on Twitter, and I can't. There's a Vietnam War movie where the last line is the horror.
Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
Good catch, Tom.
Yeah. That is how I described. I was at press row for the infamous 38-30. I think I blocked it. Penn State, Illinois, 2009. I believe it was 35-32 is the final. I was there.
The horror.
That's incredible. So you bet 2 really tough, big-time basketball games, to say the least. Looking at Seton Hall right now, 11-8 and 7th in the Big East Conference, and 2-4 in conference play as well. As we look at who they played in conference, they lost to St. John's. So St. John's got their first Big East win in the conference as well. Congratulations to the Johnnies and the Red Storm as they're 11-8. They also, but before that game, we were talking about this on Thursday as St. John's played them on Thursday. So they Seton Hall beat Georgetown on last Saturday. They lost to Marquette the Saturday before that in a 1-point loss. They lost by 16 to Nova, and they lost by 13 to Creighton, but they beat Providence in double OT. And Providence, we talk about a Big East basketball team who's on a little bit of a push. They just beat Butler. They beat Xavier today, and they're now 15-5 in the conference and 30 in the Big East. How about that?
Yeah, that's definitely played their way out into the NIT and into the tournament bubble conversation. They've got a good balance. They're kind of overlooked. If you look at the Big East, you've got, obviously, Nova stands out. Creighton's got the number one offense in the nation. Xavier's really solid. So who's your fourth best team? I'd say it's Providence. I don't know who you'd really put as the fourth best team in the league.
No, it's a surprise because a lot of people were thinking Marquette was going to be the best team in the league this year in the Big East, and Georgetown's usually solid, but a little bit of down years from both those teams, and still time for them to turn it around. But like you said, it looks like Providence is going to be that fourth team. I think it'll be interesting come tournament time to see how many Big East teams will make the tournament. Because obviously Nova, Creighton, and I think Xavier are pretty solid. And you mentioned Providence right now in the bubble. Xavier's 15-5, 5-2 in the conference. But that's a team, that's used to winning, used to making the tournament. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and again, we look at Seton Hall, as we talked about it. They are on that one-game winning streak right now, or one-game losing streak. After that loss to St. John's, I forgot about that game really quick. And again, St. John's actually just beat Butler today, so they're now they're up by 17 in Indianapolis. So they right now are 2-5 in the conference. So Steve Lavin is starting to have that program turned around after people were talking about. I saw this maybe on your website as well. Maybe the potential, or someone else's, the potential of Lavin being out at St. John's.
Lavin is actually a really good friend of mine.
So you wouldn't do that to him?
No, of course not. He sent me his wedding photos like a month before they were released to the public. I would never do that to him.
What a nice guy. What a nice guy.
No, when I wrote about Lav, and here's where I'm going to criticize Lav, because, everyone has said this, that he's more of a recruiter than he is a coach. Mm-hmm. And when you have that much talent, there's 3 guys on the squad right now that'll probably play in the NBA. And, he had a number 2 overall recruiting class at UCLA. He had a number 1 overall recruiting class a different year at UCLA. And he never advanced beyond the Elite 8. So the idea of Lavin being out right away, I'd say maybe next year we would talk about hot seat, then possibly a couple of years down the line, because he's recruited the talent. You need to give him a chance to use that talent and see what they can do with it. Yeah,
you mentioned him being more of a recruiter than a coach. You wonder, does he maybe bring in an assistant coach? That focuses more on the X and O's. You know him personally. Does he have a?
Well, he's got Gene Katie as an special assistant.
I did see that. Yeah, coming out of retirement there.
And he's got Gene Katie, and he's got a great staff. It's just that the major knock on Lavin has been that his practices are too light. At UCLA, they were referred to by the press as glorified shoot-arounds. So maybe he's not a great.
There's no Mike Rice.
Did you? Yeah, right. We've got Izzo, who's, like this ultra hardliner, and you've got Lavin, who's too much of a player's coach. Maybe we could just find a happy medium somewhere in there.
It's going to be tough, though. It's going to be tough to find that coach. We'll maybe try to find it later on here. But looking at, again, Seton Hall DePaul, it's going to tip off in about a minute. So if you want to give your prediction here, Paul, if you believe the Blue Demons can pull out this W, it's going to be very tough, as we looked at that starting lineup just a second ago.
I'm going to say the Hall takes this one 82-69.
Yeah, I think Seton Hall is going to win this one. I think maybe DePaul can hang tough for a half, but just not enough firepower. I'm going to go 77-54.
Wow, so you're going 20-plus.
Yeah.
A loss of 20-plus for the Blue Demons. I'm going to take DePaul on this one just because of my spirit and my hopefulness for the Blue Demons. I'm going to go with DePaul. I'm going to take 65, a lower scoring basketball game, 65-62.
All right.
Big Ten style.
So maybe a game-winning jump shot. I'm not going to say who. I'm just going to put it out there. If someone wants to come up in the clutch and hit a game-winning jumper, that's fine with me.
I like you going out on a limb.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
you adopting an unpopular stance.
It's what I have to do. Again, we go to a school that has a basketball team that's trying to get back into some claim and have some pride in this conference. Hopefully, they can get it done here today.
What was Texans Super Bowl and Mets to win the division? Last
Yes,
year, right?
but yeah, Tom and I had a little bit of prediction. I predicted the Mets to make the wild card, and I predicted the Houston Texans to make the Super Bowl versus the Seattle Seahawks, and he will never let that go.
I just love Eli loves to go out on limbs, so it's great.
And we'll see if it works here today. Paul, do you have any last words before we hit a break here and bring in our next guest?
Well, I've got a question. Well, not a question, but just something to think about. Before Purnell was hired, there was some talk about Lavin coming here, and I just wondered, what if Lavin did come here and it was Purnell? And then what do you think about, what about Purnell and his long-term job status?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and if DePaul does look at bringing in a new head coach, we'll see based off the record. It's got to. I think the Big East record has to be somewhere maybe around 5 or less wins for DePaul. And again, they've won 2 games already, so we'll see how far this takes them. And if they win here against Seton Hall, pull off the upset, I think Purnell is going to get a lot of credit because of how doomed they are because of their starting lineup and their shortened bench. So it's going to be interesting. But if not, they could bring in a new coach pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's just the only issue is he's still, he's getting paid a lot of money, and I think he has 2 years after this year left on the deal. There's really nothing to defend his job done here. It's obviously a tough situation, but he's now in his 4th season, so these are his players, and he hasn't done anything with them. So I definitely think that the seat is warm. Not quite hot yet, but it's definitely warm.
All right, we're going to have to wrap this up, and we'll be back on with Del Yates next. And again, we really appreciate Paul M. Banks of the SportsBank.net for coming in here today and talking college hoops with us. Paul, thank you very much for coming on in.
Thanks for having me on. And remember, you can read all my college hoops articles at the SportsBank.net and follow my updates on Twitter at Paul M. Banks. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you very much. And we're gonna hit a quick break here. And again, thank you to our sponsor from Derby Bar and Grill right off DePaul's campus at 1224 West Webster Avenue. Check them out while you listen to us on